thrilled to see so many faces that I know. Yay, and I appreciate it. I want to say that this is the first of 2 of the spring. This week we're concentrating on Chelsea, but now the new very hot neighborhood is not the Lower East Side anymore, but Tribeca. And in the last few weeks, there have been articles in the newspapers about some of the major galleries leaving Uptown and leaving Chelsea to go to Tribeca. This all happened because of COVID, and there were many big stores that went out of business, and therefore the rents came down, and that's why there's some huge spaces in Tribeca. So that's for the next one. So today we're concentrating on quite a few different exhibitions, people who are alive, who are dead, people who are young and who are old, very different. And one Israeli artist who I love, Michal Rovner, we're going to see her work. And unfortunately, the gallery had a lot of problems because of what's happening in Israel. But I think the work is gorgeous. So let's start off with the first. We have Victor Mann. That show is at Gladstone Gallery. You're going to later get, I sent in, and Shirel took it off and we'll send it to you later because it was too much to put in. I put down each one a video about the artist, the works in the show, and a press release. And the video is not necessarily of the work that you're seeing in the show, but you hear more about the artist. Some of the videos are like 13 minutes, so we're not going to see it all. I just want you to give a flavor for it, and then you can look at the rest on your own. I'm so honored and thrilled to be with you, and let's get started. So it goes video works, and then video works each time.
I was working with an artist on another exhibition and was invited by the gallery who represent Victor to attend an opening of an exhibition of new work.
It's better to make it smaller, otherwise it doesn't work as well.
His work. And there was something that very immediately compelling about the...
Shirel, if you don't do it full screen, it works better. I've been doing this all the time now. Yeah, okay. Like that. Yeah.
Paintings that I saw in that exhibition, the way they were made, the way they were crafted, the use of very particular imagery, and the sort of ideas and propositions that tumbled out from viewing that exhibition as a whole, that sort of interested me, intrigued me, excited me, and also meeting Victor, we seemed to sort of have a certain kind of rapport immediately. You know, there's a kind of friendly kind of exchange. So from that point on, kept in touch with him, met him on various occasions, made more research about his work, got to understand much more about his work and the ideas he was interested in. And the invitation for this exhibition probably came around 2 years ago. I approached Victor and made contact to see if he would be interested in making an exhibition at Icon.
So you're seeing how an exhibition...
I was interested in Victor as an artist working in Romania, as until relatively recent times, that was a part of the world that I knew little about, but because of political change there, was suddenly more information was coming out from that part of the world, as well as a lot more information from the West going into that. And so here was an artist grappling with that in some sort of way, dealing with this in his work, not in a literal way, but perhaps in a more oblique way or in a metaphorical way, and somehow reconciling these two traditions, the local traditions and the histories and myths and the objects and the forms that he'd grown up with this newfound freedom, if you like. A lot of the imagery that is used in the paintings is found in some way near to Victor's studio or his home, be it in magazines, journals, wherever these images occur. And likewise, the objects are found objects that are brought together to create new meanings. The objects themselves per se are often have a certain oddness about them. So while one is aware of something that looks as if it could have functioned in a particular way, and the evidence of use and patina of age, etc., is very evident within the work, there is something also there's an unease, or there's something unsettling about the object, especially then when a number of forms are combined to make a new object. How that begins to read in a very different way.
Okay, we can stop here. I just wanted you to see how different his work always is. And there's some artists whose work you can look at from year to year and nothing changes. And then there are other artists that each exhibition becomes something else. So when you let's go to the show now, and you'll see that the show is all about gypsies, and they're beautifully, beautifully painted. And I'd like to go to the first painting, go to the first painting with a monkey. And that is on all the press. And this is oil on cardboard. And you see that oil on cardboard looks very different than if it's on canvas. There's a very eerie light to it. And what I like that he does is all the paintings that he does, there's a surreal quality, and it's telling you more than just what you think you're seeing. So for instance, you notice right away that you see brothel room with monkey. So this is a room with for a brothel, but there's a monkey there. It feels very weird. It's not a big painting. And also look at the green on the monkey's face and the shadow, which is the complementary color for the red inside there. So that's one. Let's go to the next one. The next one is a very large painting, and it's just of a cover of a book. And when you go into the gallery, it's on the wall when you come in right away, and go to the next one, because those are the ones I really want to talk about. And these are Gypsy Girl. Now, if you look at it, you say to me, Toby, I can't believe this was done in 2022. And I'll say, yes, he is. And when you get up close, the surface is a very thin surface. There's a lot of glazing. The underpaintings in this case is a green, and that's why the color looks so rich. And it's a close-up, and it's trying, and I do notice that the eyes are different size, and you feel like you're right in her face, and he's trying to tell you that she's trying to be a human being other than a gypsy that you see in the airport, and you're nervous that she's going to take your money, but he's showing you the beautiful personal side of that gypsy. So as you remember in the other show that he had at the Icon Museum, there he had all different animals, and he's always trying to make you rethink what you think you know. Go to the next one. I find this is my favorite painting in the show, and it's called Gypsy Girl Again. And this makes me think immediately that he was looking at Gauguin. And the way this piece is, can you tell us about the sculpture? The sculpture in the exhibition was an earlier show, but I wanted you to see that he does both. And the sculptures were of found objects that he turned into something different than they were. So that fox's head was on a metal stick, and you'll watch the video later. You'll see he does many different things that make you rethink about what things are. So in the sculptures, it was about taking a fox. You know, you're not scared of the fox anymore because it's been dead for at least 30 or 40 years, and he puts it on and it becomes more like a totem. Here, you're looking at a gypsy, and you're not scared. I hope you're not scared of her. She becomes a human being, and he tries to take things out of context. Go to the next one. This show is mainly about gypsies. So also, there are religious figures in here, and he looks back at art history and reinterprets it from his point of view. So that's what he does. He's a very excellent, excellent figurative artist, and he can do anything he wants. Most of the colors in this show are very low intensity, and he almost always is low intensity colors. And this is a black and white painting based on a colored painting. Let's go to the next one. So he's making you enter into his own world. And there's a real strangeness to it. There's a bizarreness of how the body is in space, but you can tell that he's an amazingly accomplished figurative artist. So he's giving you a lot of art history, a lot of nostalgia, and the colors become a big part of the piece. This whole show has the same basic colors. Go to the next. I find this one so beautiful. She has a tooth in her hand. It's very sad because her tooth fell out, but look at the way those 3 little white spots are on her dress. It brings a lot of life and color into there because she looks very exhausted and there's a tiredness in the image. But when you see those white spots, it makes it much more alive. Again, notice the eyes. He very often plays with the eyes, that they're not the same shape. Let's go to the next one. Again, look at that beautiful space behind her face. Look at that little white in her blouse. It makes you realize he is in full control of how you're looking at things. He's also looking at paintings that were done many, many years ago, where the underpainting is raw sienna, or for the artist in the room, or burnt raw sienna or burnt umber. And then he builds up, and it reminds me of the way color is put down like Manet. Also, the top layers, when you get into the show, which I was at today, you can see the glazing. There's a beautiful sense of light emanating from her face, and also on the red part, the white part of her blouse. Let's go to the next. That is one of the sweetest paintings. It's called Beneath the Gypsy Moon, and it's very, very, it's beautiful and poignant. Look at the beautiful white feather behind her head, and then look again on the blanket, that light orange. And again, what does that do for you? It sets up a beautiful sense of space. Most of the painting is very interior, but also the gold circle on her necklace also brings your eye into the space. Look at the light on her breast and on her arm and on her chin. You really feel like you're entering into the experience of being on the bed together with these 2 women that really love each other. It does not look sexual to me. It looks more like loving. Very beautiful painting. All right, let's go to the next. Now look at the light in this painting. This to me is, again, so powerful and so beautiful. Look at the way the light is emanating from the fire and their faces. You feel like you're entering into the painting. What's interesting in this exhibition, most exhibitions of contemporary artists do not have these very simple frames behind them. And all the shows in this frame, in this show, have a very thin frame. So you feel like you're almost entering into a visual space. Let's keep going. And that already, I'm sure you all know this. It's allusions to motherhood and the idea of intimacy, private intimacy. And that painting would not be nearly as interesting if that beautiful white material or whitish blue material was not right behind her neck. Love this painting again. He plays with you. Gauguin, yes. And yes, Latour, very good. Jeffrey, thank you. I agree with you. Very interesting, but he's a contemporary artist who's playing with that. He's not copying that. I love that you brought that up. Yes?
No one other than you can see Jeff's comment, so if you can just incorporate.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I apologize. You know what? Would you do me a favor when the comments come on? Can you read it so then I can answer it? That would be great. So he was
Some of them are
talking about-
sent directly to you, so I don't see them.
Oh,
So
so he,
I'll ask people once again to send the comments directly to me so that I can interrupt Toby at the end of each section with all the questions.
so Jeffrey brought in Gauguin again and George Latour, and I love you for bringing that up. And I'm proud of you because I want to explain something that's very, very important. Artists who are referring to other artists does not mean that they are copying them. They're in dialogue. It's very much like anyone who studied in yeshiva and you look at the Gemara and they talk about their conversation between great rabbis. These artists are looking at other artists and saying, you know, I love the way you use color, but I want to do something a little different. So that's a very good comment that you said. All right, let's keep going. I'm watching my clock very carefully and nervously. That is the funniest piece in the show. It's tiny. It's in the first room. It's 4 little dancing rats. And I get a kick out of it because there's a lot of chutzpah there. So I'm very, very, I dislike it, but I love it. And what do I mean by I dislike it? I wish he'd spend his time doing something else other than painting rats, but it's funny and it's well painted. All right, let's go to the next. And this is breathtaking. And you can see the way the space is in here. It takes your eye a little time. I was there today. It takes your eye a little time to get to see everything, but that's what's so beautiful about it. It feels like it's growing out of the night. And sometimes when you get up close to things, you see the color in things, but I love the way he uses the background color. I don't know if your eyes are getting used to it. Now you start seeing more and more of the whole background. So the paintings are not large. They're like 24 by 36, and some of them, they're in that range. And you walk into the gallery, it's in 3 rooms. It's hung beautifully. Let's go to the next. And that's back to the beginning. So that's show number 1. Now we're going to see Francesca Woodman. I think I showed you. Now, this is a very sad story. I have to tell it to you first. She's one of the most important artists of the 20th century now. And she, unfortunately, she died by suicide. All this work that she did is from the age of 18 to 22. And she went to RISD, Rhode Island School of Design. Her mother was a very well-known artist, as was her father. They both died recently, and now the estate is with Gagosian Gallery. I first saw it because a friend of mine told me about her work because she was a curator at RISD, and then it eventually, I think 5 or 6 years ago, went to the Marion Goodman Gallery, and this historian is talking only about one of her works, and I think it's very profound. So, and this is one of the pieces in the exhibition.
My name is Jean Dunning, and I'm going to talk about House 4, Providence, Rhode Island, 1975 to 1976, a photograph by Francesca Woodman. When we see this photograph, we're looking at a picture that was taken inside an abandoned house. Then you also see in the picture a woman, you see her body, and she's kind of wedged her body in this crevice, this crack that's opened up when the mantelpiece got separated from the wall. There are a lot of things that interest me about this picture. It's photographed in this way where everything is skewed, and that sort of really emphasizes even more than the peeling wallpaper and the cracks in the walls and stuff, that this is a house that's falling apart. It's like a house is a structure that we go inside to protect us, right? So when a house falls apart, it's like that protection feels like it's breaking down. That sense of this distinction in the border between the inside and the outside is breaking down. I think something similar is happening with the way we see Francesca Woodman's body here. So was captured, like the shutter clicked, at a moment when she was moving. And so her body is blurred. And so that blurriness suggests a similar kind of breaking down of the borders of her own body that sort of mirrors what's going on in the house. It's like she's trying to merge with the house itself. What does this mean to like wedge herself into this crack that has been created as the house starts to break apart and fall down? So on the one hand, you know, when we feel threatened in any way, it's almost like an animal impulse, an instinct. One of the things that we sometimes do is try to find an enclosed dark space to curl up in, right? Almost to hide in. I mean, it's like when something bad happens to you and you just feel like you have to go home and curl up under the covers in your bed for a little while, right? And so on the one hand, it almost seems like she's trying to hide, she's trying to protect herself by sort of trying to wedge herself into this crack. But at the same time, I think the fact that she's moving towards the darkness and moving into this crevice that was created by the house breaking down, as opposed to moving towards the light, the outside world, towards the window, also suggests a compulsion almost, or a desire at least, to explore these new dark unknown spaces that are being created when things break down. It sort of says something about this idea of losing your sense of self, feeling like you don't have as clear of a grasp of that, of what separates you from everything else in the world. What is your
Okay,
own,
we can stop right there. We can stop right there. I'm watching my time. I'm very careful about my time because I'm watching it, but this is very important. So I wanted to start today with two very different approaches. One is a curator and one is a historian, and they're talking about artists that are very well known. And the first one was he worked with the artist, and she is talking about an artist who's been dead for many years and looking at her work when she was in college at RISD. And now let's look at the show. The images are very small in the show. I take that back. The one piece when you come in the room, that is using an architectural blueprint and having the original small pieces on there on the side. So you can see this was done after her death. Now, what's very exciting for me about showing you her work, I've always loved her work, and I'm so happy for her soul that people are now looking at her and she's becoming more and more important. But look at how small those images are. And that is why, if we have time today, I want to end with a show called Nightlife Photography, a group show where you'll see other great artists who Ouija and Helmut Newton and different people. But I want you to know that she is now in the canon. And now she's considered one of the most important people historically. But unfortunately, she died at 22. Let's go through the whole show. Installation views, you'll walk around. Now look at these. Oh, I don't know about you. I'm in love with these images. Now, what she did, as you heard by the woman who said, the curator said that she went to an abandoned house. You can look at her face. Do you see her face under the window? Sherelle, can you do that brilliant thing? I love you, Sherelle. There, and then look at her leg. And she got her friends to go with her in the space. And I'm so sad to say that if I were a therapist, you already know she's disappearing. And her work is very much about that disappearance. Also, look at the light through the window. It's very beautiful, and there's a hopefulness in there. So let's look at these images. I love every image in the show, but we don't have a lot of time. No. You go to the little arrow. You go to the little arrow. You see that little arrow right in the middle? Sherelle, that there, yeah. Very romantic. She plays with flowers and she uses her own body. And remember, these are very small. These are the same size as a Polaroid. But look at the way she composes it. And who does it make you think of? If you say Cindy Sherman, I love you very much. But she's setting up the camera she is using herself as a model or friends and moving in the space. And it's very lyrical. But remember, she's 18, 19, 20, and 21, all done when she's very young. Let's go to the next. Now, I took a group of people today and they were laughing. She was worried about her body aging and she was so young. And the people in my group today were like in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And I said, oh my God, if she had lived, boy, would she have a lot to talk about. But She uses the plastic and the props and the canvas. She brought that there to tell a narrative. I'd love to hear from you guys what you think of it. I am telling you, I think these are breathtaking photographs, and they're very much about isolation and beauty and adolescence or late adolescence. Let's go to the next one. Now that becomes very romantic and very beautiful. She's using dried flowers. She's looking at peering through a window. But what's so interesting? Oh my God, you're going to say to me, look at the fact that the shade is on the outside of the window. Rather, you see the shade there on the window? Cheryl, can you point to that shade, that wooden shade on you see that? The shade right above there, right there. That shade is outside of the building where you're looking in, but instead of the shade being inside, it's outside, which I find very profound. And she played that game very, very well about setting everything up. Do you notice on the left side, the clothing line, the beautiful little wooden pieces? This was not the way it is. She set it up. So everything is very set up and predetermined. And if we have time, I hope to show you this nightlife photographs, and you'll see 5 different artists, photographers, all looking at nightlife in a very different way. Let's go to the next one. Again, I mean, my students at SVA are madly in love with her. Look at the way she's using light. You look at the way she's using paper, pedestals, everything. Now, if you look at her body, who does it remind you of? And if you said Edward Weston, you get 5,000 points, because that is a very famous image that Edward Weston did of the dunes, of a woman's back. But it's very beautiful that this is a woman doing women. These are some of her friends and some are self-portraits. Let's keep going. Again, very powerful, interacting with sculpture, and you feel very much the weight of the world that she felt. And what does she use very well? Light and shadow. Very good. Let's go to the next. Again, look at the way the light is in this room. It's very bleach light. Do I think it's an accident or not? It is not. That you see the ceiling wooden boards. You notice the little outlet on the side of the doorpost, and you see a phone jack, which we don't exist anymore, on the other side of the door. And the fact that this is all white walls, but the light looks very different because of the shadow. And look at the way she's holding her hand. I don't even know what to say. I love the work so much. Let's go to the next. Yes.
Tobi, I can stop you for a few comments and questions about this.
I love questions. Yes.
So we have here a comment from Jeff about the difference between her and Cindy Sherman. So maybe you can talk about that a little.
Thank you. I would love to. Yes. First of all, yeah, go ahead.
Also mentioning Man Ray as a connection. And one question, which I think is more general in terms of her being a photographer, she's appearing in all the photographs. So who is snapping?
No. Not all her. Not all her. Sometimes it's her friends. Many of them you saw. The woman with the sculpture was not her. That was a friend. She has somebody there with her. And so let's start with the Cindy Sherman and then the Man Ray. I love those questions. So the Cindy Sherman she is setting up the whole thing, but Cindy Sherman would use a push, like a little push thing to push the image of the shutter. She has a friend of hers standing there. She sets it up. She looks at how it looks, and then she has somebody else press the button. So that is 100%. That is the similarity with Cindy Sherman, except if you remember early Cindy Sherman, she was doing black and whites when she was in college, and she would dress up like a woman in the 50s. Hers is much more raw about the beauty of the female body and the idea of a psychological. I love that you brought that up. These are much more psychological images. And the Man Ray thing is she was very interested in space. And that is a beautiful comment you said. Here, the models are always an element in the photographs rather than the photographs. And that is why I wanted to see the later exhibition we'll see later of Nightlife, where it's more about the actual the portraits. And this is the portrait is a woman in a space. And I love that she plays with light so much. And yes, very much like Man Ray of using light and color. Good comment. Thank you. And this is even more like Man Ray. But again, she's using the light from the window, but she sets it all up and then photographs it. But she also uses a lot of her friends. The interesting thing is most of these friends are not that well known, and we don't know who all the people are in the images. Let's keep going. And remember, she was only 22 when she died. So this is all from college. And RISD has really helped her career. See, now you'll see two people in there, and there's an image of her jumping and the woman sitting there. And yes, do I think she's looking at people like, what's her name again? Frida Kahlo? Yes, very much so. She's very interested. It's all about the way a woman feels. It's very little. I can't remember any images with men in there. Let's go to the next. And remember, you're seeing these images much bigger than they actually are, because they're the size of a Polaroid. And again, you can obviously see how much she loves raw space. I feel very honored to show you this work. It's my third iteration of showing you her work over the last 15 years. Let's keep going. And that is, I find, the saddest of all the images. There you can see how totally lonely the image looks. And you can see in the background, you see those are the big blueprints, and that's what's used for architecture. And that's how those are printed. And then look at the beautiful tulips. It's a very interesting setup of the composition. This is the one that I feel, and these are the new, they really redid these recently, and these are like 6 feet in the gallery. And that is what Gagosian's trying to get her to become one of the most important artists of our time. And that's it. That's show number 2. I'm trying to go as quick as I can. Now we're going to somebody who was part of the Harry Who. His name is Carl Wortham. It's 13 minutes. I hope you all watch these videos on your own later. I'm just going to get you started because I think he is hysterical. And he died during COVID in 2020 in his 80s. So this is him as a young man.
The way I started, I had a fractured skull when I was about 4 or 5, just before I got into school, in a sense. And my father used to do drawing things, or he did when I was in the hospital. He did these like little drawings while I was recuperating. I kind of got into the drawing thing too. And like when I got out, I started taking these kid classes. I really was interested in the thing since I was, about 4 or 5.
The things that I collect are mainly like toys and items that have been produced in a very cheap commercial fashion, either for maybe New Year's Eve or some kind of advertising things. I kind of used to like to have them around in terms of an environmental thing where their kind of presence makes me feel kind of good. The ones that I collect, and the way they're done, have a simple quality and a directness, and it's the kind of thing that I try to do in my own work, or they have qualities in it that if I see in other people's work too, that I like it, like those bright colors and the shapes and things. Toys related to my work and use of line and simple basic colors kind of thing. Whereas now I'm actually, in a sense, I'm working with the puppets, like making toys in a way, or things related to that, rather than art, in terms of things that are hung on a wall, which may not be that interesting to children, whereas things I'm doing now might, have more of a direct interest to children as well as adults.
Okay, now we'll see that. We're going to stop here because I'm watching my time, but you got an idea. That's him talking about his work. And this show is very much like a retrospective. And you're going to see his work from the 60s and 70s. And you have to remember that he's doing this work during the time of Jackson Pollock, people like Philip Guston, people like de Kooning. And it's very powerful to watch how, can everyone hear me? Can you all hear me?
Yes, Toby.
Oh, good. Oh, can we go to the show? That's what I was trying to do. I want it. Yeah, there they are. So now look at this historical work by, now that's one of his paintings. So you'll see the size in here. This is acrylic on canvas with a wooden frame. And you can see that they're very playful, very cartoon-like. And what interests me, I first saw his work when he was showing with a woman by the name of Phillips Collection. She was a Jewish lady from Chicago, and she was a gallery in Soho, and drawing inspirations for comic book strips, advertisement, carnival sideshows, pottery, Chinese, Japanese wood prints. And I think what I love so much is it's very, very, very playful. So let's look at some of the images. Now, this first one is so funny to me. It's called Tongue Tied. And I think the show is so beautiful. These are not large pieces. They're, 45 by 35. And they're done with acrylic on canvas and painted wooden frame. But he lets the paint, the background be the raw canvas. So he's not always filling everything in. Let's keep going. Remember, what's most important to me about this exhibition is these are done in the 60s. These are done in the 60s. Look, I'm sorry about that. These are done in the 60s, and no one is doing work like this at that time. So I look at this. This is so funny. It's called Bubblegum Pop, and the work has this great sense of humor. I don't know if you all like it, but who does it remind you of? Somebody will say Roy Lichtenstein. Yes, but he was doing this even before that. Or Andy Warhol on steroids. Yes. The other person that I would compare it to is Jim Nutt, another one of the very famous Chicago artists. But he was of that group. And look at how flat everything is. There's no three-dimensionality in the paintings. Very different than we first saw with Victor Mann. These are about pop art. And it makes you really smile. I love that. Let's keep going down. Let's go to the next.
There's also a comment about it being pop art meets outsider art.
Oh my God. Somebody must have read the review. Yay. Whoever said that, 5,000 points.
Jeff Kaufman.
Oh my God. You're rocking. Yes, it's very much like playing with consciously outsider art. But as you said, he grew up drawing and pop art. But remember why I'm so happy for his soul is he died in his 80s, but now there are so many young artists that are obsessed with him. And there's a good sense of humor. And what I like most is the works are over 30 years. Let's keep going. And you'll see there's subtle changes with the backgrounds. That is anyone who's an artist. This is his drawing book. I love that. And these are all drawings in the book. Let's keep going. That's in a beautiful vitrine in the front of the gallery. I find these so nice. This is ink on paper. And you can see how he's thinking through his ideas. Keep going. We'll go through these quickly because I want to get to some of the other paintings. but you'll see how his brain, I want to clap for this. I love this. Who does this make you think of? And if you're going to say Andy Warhol's pieces that he later did of camouflage, I give you 1,000 points. There's something funny, very flat, very poster-like, but great sense of humor. And remember, no one is doing this in 1966, except if you're him and Jim Nutt and the Chicago School and the Harry Who. Let's keep going. That's my favorite piece in the show, that and the tongue-tied. Let's keep going. And if anyone has seen the Joker, the movie The Joker, I believe, and I've always believed this, it says Joker on the bottom, that many filmmakers look at artists who are well known but not super famous, because I think this makes me feel very much like the Joker in that last film. Very powerful work. And I like the way the little lines around the outside makes it feel like his face is shaking. Let's keep going. I know I'm watching my time. And look at this again. I love that. And he plays with it so it looks very much like a poster. And if you look at it for a minute, it's a woman, but then you look at it again, it looks like a very Aboriginal face. Let's keep going. And this, you can see the ink on the paper, and you can see this is the precursor for the painting that he's going to do. So he works it through as a paper piece and then does it as a painting. And again, very flat color. And he made all his own frames. Now he's playing with color theory, and it looks very much like Japanese woodcuts, but they're paintings. Keep going. And this to me is just so much fun. And there are people I teach with at SVA that are very influenced. Look at the frames, and on the frame it has little metal corners on there, which adds to the funniness. And that is, can you believe that it's called, it's Gargle, and it's on the top of a medicine cabinet. I was there today. It's quite a large medicine cabinet, and the background is not white, it's a mirror. So it's painted on a mirror. And this is one of his very powerful puppets. And in the gallery, all the pieces of string are hanging up onto the ceiling. So he's sitting, but not actually sitting. And it's very much like the piece you saw in the film on a bicycle. And then in the back of the gallery, yes?
Tobi, there's a comment and question here about how it reminds of the psychedelic art and posters of the time, and if he was using psychedelic drugs, if we know about that, anything.
He was not my friend, but from what I heard, I heard that he was, yes. I don't know for a fact, but I wouldn't be surprised. And yes, somebody in my students at SVA said to me when we went to the show, do you think the Beatles used this for the copy of their Magical Mystery Tour thing? And I don't know that, but you should know he was in the art world. I was in art school in the 70s. My teachers all had told me about him. He was considered a folk hero. Very quirky guy, but remember, nobody was interested in this type of work at that time. Let's keep going. I always tell people you have to remember when things are made. I love this piece. I just love it. And do I think that Kusama was influenced by him? Not even a maybe. Somebody had to have shown Kusama her work, his work. Shirel, did you know his work ever or not? I don't think Israelis would have known him.
I know his paintings, but I've never seen his sculptures.
Yeah, they're beautiful. They're small and they're just beautiful. He had a great sense of humor, but as you heard him say in the video, he liked looking at toys that were like in the Cracker Jack. He doesn't say it, but I'm telling you, in the Cracker Jack boxes or in movies when they'd give out free things. And that's in the back of the gallery. These are quite large. And if Sherelle, if I'm not going to drive you insane, I'd like everyone in the group after we finish the show I want them to see Jim Nutt's work for a minute, and you'll understand Jim Nutt was more famous. They were both very famous, but Jim Nutt was more of a crossover. I think this is the last image of these. Am I right or not? Oh no, this one. Yeah, that's a great one too. And that was done 20 years later. So you see his work changed from the 60s to the 80s. And he did one piece in 2000. You know what? Let's go through the rest of them very quickly because I want you to see Jim Nutt because I think that's a very important comparison. That's in the back of the gallery. When you walk in, that's all the way in the back. Very beautifully done. Very theatrical. And again, you can see he worked on black in the 70s. And that's with a paper bag. I just love that piece. That looked, and it's small. And you see that's a plunger. Do you see the rubber plunger is holding up the face? He had a great sense of humor. And you remember this? You remember how you saw the paper pieces? You can see that these were ideas for the pieces that he later did. And he's not scared about playing with color. Again, very funny. This is 97. So by now, there are young artists who are already looking at him, and he's playing with very humorous. And you can see that very similar to games that are on the computer. I hope you enjoy him as much as I do. I've always loved his work, and I'm thrilled to show it to you.
So there's also a question if there's something in his works that could reflect his childhood brain episode.
Yes, he said that. That's why I showed you the video in the beginning. He got into art when he had his accident, and then he started drawing, and he continued drawing all of his life. And the one who brought up the outsider art part, that's part of it. He did study art, but it really comes from a childhood fascination. Yes, I agree with that person. And now this reminds me so much of Jim Nutt. So if you do me a favor, Sherelle, I want them to see a Jim Nutt for a minute because I want you to understand that he was not alone, but he was with other artists at the same time. But he became much more famous. Take a look at those. He made big wooden frames. Do you see the similarities? Just pick any one you want. Yeah, there it is. So I want you to know that he's not alone in the world, but he's part of this very small group. Now we can go back. And why do I do this in here? Because I want you to understand that artists usually are with a group, not totally alone. One more, and then we'll go to the next show. Now, look at what happens in 2000 and 2012. He's a much older artist, and he's now giving you more conversation in there. I love this word, eye adjustment. Very funny. And by now, he's in his 70s when he's doing those. And you see now the backgrounds are not pure white anymore. It's another color, and they're more and more bizarre. And Peter Saul, a very important younger artist, was very influenced by him as well. And again, look at the beautiful yellow background. You know, as you see in his 70s and 80s, he's starting to play with colored backgrounds more, and there's less complications in there and more just like a single scene. I don't know what else to say. Let's go to the next artist as I'm watching my time and getting nervous. I hope you enjoyed him. I love him. Now we're going to go to Vic Muniz, one of the most famous contemporary artists right now. And this is a very good show that's up right now. Let's go to this one.
When you look at a picture with a certain degree of ambiguity, your perception heightens it, and you try to figure out that from all kinds of possible references. You don't know what it is, and you are completely open to any kind of way of thinking about it. When I knew that the Museum of Modern Art was organizing Stiglitz at Lake George, I went to see it in an afternoon. That show got me in a mood of looking for things in things, which is something that you do when you look at clouds one way or another. And the beautiful thing about Stiglitz equivalence is that the fact that you always see forms in clouds, in the equivalents you don't. You know, you just see clouds. I just saw the show, and right after leaving it, you know, you had this amazing marble floors. I kept thinking about clouds. And when I looked at the floor and I saw all these clouds. And then I took the camera and I started shooting the clouds right there. And this whole thing.
I remember, I used to work, I was there. I remember those floors well.
And then what I did, I went to the gift shop and I got like a piece of paper to draw, and a little pair of scissors, and I made these little round things that look like the moon, and I started shooting it there. And a security guy came and tried to ask me what I was doing. And I said, no, I'm just taking pictures of the floor. And then he was like, oh, you cannot do this. I said, why not? I'm just taking pictures of the floor. I mean, people take pictures of artworks, you don't mind. And I went out to the street. I came back and I shot like 4 rolls of film.
So do you understand? This is the marble floor.
Just like Stiglitz, but then it was just the floor of the museum in front of the exhibition where Stiglitz was. When you're dealing with something that it seems familiar to you, it's great because, first of all, you're open to it and you look at it as something that you want to see it again. But then there's this, you know, a double take. You know, you realize that that is not what you thought it was. That feeling is quite effective in creating a lasting impression and starting a conversation. And before you know, you're implicated in a series of questions about what's in front of you. You're not just looking at something, you're actually thinking about the way you're looking at something. This is the kind of interaction that I want my works to have with the viewer.
Okay, next, let's go. Now we're going to go to the show that's up right now. This is a beautiful exhibition, and part of the exhibition is these are all collages. Then he does an edition of photographs of the collages that he makes. And in the show, it's a beautiful show. I was just there today also. Some of them are editions of 6, you can see on the bottom. But what he does is he takes photographs and then cuts the photographs and does collages of the photographs and puts them all together. And in the back room, that's my favorite piece in the front room. And now this is made out of old currency, and that he blows them up, cuts them up, and puts in images. That's Harriet Tubman. They're all made out of old used dollar bills, and it's a very powerful exhibition, really powerful. And I find it fascinating that he's using currency. You can see it's currency that he goes to the state that's getting rid of the currency that's old and used. That's another beautiful piece. That's of birch trees. So you understand what he's doing? They're photographs of collages, and most of them are edition. Anyone have any questions? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. It's a very interesting way to think about what collage can be. And you see it, but it's really a photograph of the collage. Any questions on there? I know I'm going quickly because I'm nervous about my time, and I don't think I'm going to get to everything. So now you saw another one. You know, I want to go to Michal Rovner next, and then Tom Noskowski in case we don't get to everything. Oh, you know what? I'm very torn. I love the last show too. You know what? I'm going to go. I have another 15 minutes.
Yes.
Go back. I can't miss the other show. I love it so much.
This one?
Yeah. But we'll only hear her speak for a minute or two, but then I'll show you what she's doing. It's so brilliant.
Toby, there's one question about the previous one. If the original collages are also sold or just the photographs?
Very good question. For right now, they're in his studio, but I'm sure one day they will be sold. Yes, but they're not right now. Because the original ones, the dollar bills, all the bills are the size of the bills. And then when you make it bigger, it looks much bigger. Do you understand what I mean? So it's made much smaller. So he's using the actual currency.
Okay, so should I show the video?
Yeah, we'll do it very quickly, just for a minute or two, because she's so interesting.
It's very simple routine. I come in, reheat my coffee, go on the computer, look at stuff, clean my brushes, and then I get to work. I've not had time off since I started, which is crazy. Once you have a deadline, it's like impending doom. It's like a pimp. Constantly, you owe someone something. Stress assassinates creativity. If you make a bad painting in your job as an artist, it's like the worst. It's mortifying. It's like having like chocolate all over your face or something, and you're like going to like some gala. You're only as good as your last painting, which sucks, but you know, that's kind of the truth. I was growing up in the middle of nowhere, New Jersey, and I just wanted to get out of New Jersey and get to New York immediately. New York is where it seemed like all the artists went to be artists. I was watching painters painting. Stella and Rauschenberg and blah, 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 and they're all in New York, you know, sitting on like ladders covered in paint. For me, as a teenager, was amazing. That's it, you know. Now I romanticize it less because coming to New York and starting to be in the art world thing, it's insane. I've had a million shitty jobs. Overnight shift diner waitress. I worked at a group home, taught gymnastics, kindergarten teacher. I organized books for like a Marine who was obsessed with like ships. I was commuting back and forth from working in a restaurant in New Jersey so I could get my first apartment in New York. I was basically painting on top of my bed, staying up every other night to paint. Slowly, you know, I got a slightly bigger room, and then I got a slightly bigger room.
Okay,
3 years.
you can watch this on your own. I just wanted you to see her talking. She is now one of the hottest New York artists, and there she is with Elvis Presley. This is the show that was just up. There were lines out the gallery when it opened. These are quite large, and they're very funny. Let's look at the show quickly. I wanted to do this before Michal Rovner. She has a great sense of humor, and you'll see in the video, if you watch the rest of the video, she says, oh, should I really use orange or should I use red? She understands color theory, but these are an amalgam of many different things that she's thinking about. And that's why I wanted to show you this after Vic Muniz, because he collages with collages and she collages in essence with images. That is one of my funniest ones. I just love that. When you go up there and you see the painting, it looks so super real. So she's a super, look at the ice in there. That is very funny. This, it says Gagosian and Alex Katz. So it's one of the biggest paintings in the show. And she just painted the ad for the Alex Katz Gagosian show. And look at the Jewish princess now. This is another one. These are mannequins. She does a whole thing of the way mannequins look in the setup of a store, but it's not a real store. It's totally fictitious. Let's go to the next. So you can tell she's a breathtakingly talented painter. And I wanted you to think about this with Victor Mann, because Victor Mann is telling you a story about different people, and hers are everything that's coming through her head. It's like being in her brain. I love the way she talks. And she grew up with a father who was that is so funny. Steamy little Jewish princess. She's just got a great sense of humor. All right, let's go to Michal Grosvenor. We're going to go to the next show. I'm hoping you're not upset with me and you'll let me know if you want. There's so many great shows that I didn't want to miss anything. This is the show sheet. This is the images from the show
No, I
before
hear the jackals.
October 7th.
I always hear the jackals. They live near cities also, but they never interact. I decided to sit in dark fields. I wanted to have an encounter with the other, with the stranger, with the maybe terrorist. It was a period of time that there was a lot of terror going on in the world. Before, all the terror was in the Middle East, and suddenly it invaded Europe in different cities. And at the same time, there was a mass movement of displacement. There were about 70 million people pulled out of their places, moving from Africa and from the Middle East, from Syria to Europe. And those two things together gave a feeling of fear, of threat, of suspicion. At that time, I decided to look for the jackals in the dark fields. You cannot film at night because for video you need to bring light and the jackals will run away. I needed to get special equipment, infrared, surveillance equipment. I studied all the equipment that hunters use. And one day, one of them came out of the bushes and sat in front of me. He was there watching me, guarding me. That moment, I thought that's probably how the prehistoric man felt when he saw a big animal and he wanted to run into a cave to engrave it, to leave an imprint on a stone in a safe place. I had a feeling.
That's all you need. That's all we need of this. Now we're going to see the exhibition. I hope everyone's okay with me that I'm doing it this way because I have so much I want you to see. So the show is called Pragim. And when you see it, we'll keep going down. You keep going down, 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 down. There it is. Pragim on view. There it is. So when you look at that, it's a beautiful installation, and you'll understand that her work is a very powerful exhibition. There they are. So these are videos. They're on the wall, and you can see in the video they move a little. Now, and I have to talk about this because of what happened in October. She changed her show because of October 7th. And they're very much about isolation, loneliness, sorrow. There are two rooms that you walk through, and there's a big wall on the back of one big work on paper. But take a look at them. I find these so sad and so beautiful and so powerful. Let's just keep going down so you can see more of them. I don't know how you all feel. I think these are brilliant works. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But when you look at these in relationship to somebody like Carrie Worsom, you'll see there's a very interesting flatness to the work. And when you look to the flowers on the left side, there are a lot of them that are still closed, and on the right side, they're in full bloom. And when you see the videos move, you see them moving in the wind. Let's keep going down. So when you walk into the gallery, everything is dark, and you see on the left side, you walk into that room, and you see on the wall, Sorrel, can you put your arrow right? You see in that. So you walk, not those are videos, but inside the back, that opening right? No, there, that opening, you're going into a room, and the projection is of the Pragim, the flowers, on the outside, and you go inside and you feel like you're in a sacred space. It's very, very, Cheryl, you said you were here. Did you see this show?
Yes.
Wasn't that powerful? I found it so moving. Very sad also, sad and moving at the same time. Let's go to the next one. And there, so you see the rooms are very full, and there are all these video screens on the wall with the images moving on there. Let's go to the next one. And you can see the scale by the person standing there. There was a very powerful anti-Israel at the opening. A group of artists stood there, and I know somebody who works with her, and they said she was okay about it. The gallery totally freaked out. And they threw red paint on the outside of the gallery. Let's go to the next. And these also very beautiful, very quiet. So you can see the whole gallery has different walls, different colors. Let's go again. And there's one more. That's the installation inside. I found that so powerful. And you stand in there, you feel like you're in the middle of a field. And that's the other room that you walk into. There are two rooms you walk into. One is red and one is black and white. All right, that's the end of that. I want to do one more show. Tom Nuskowski, I want to end with him. I know I only have 5 more minutes. It's a great video. It's 2 minutes. It's almost 3 minutes, and then we'll see the show. And I can't thank you enough for being so nice and letting me have the extra 15 minutes. Let's keep going. Let's do it.
I was taught by abstract expressionists. For me, I have to see something on the canvas and react to it. I have done paintings in hours, finished paintings in hours, but more typically it takes me a long time to feel satisfied that I've pushed the idea of the image as far as I can.
It would be foolish of me to say that there is one kind of source for the body of my work, because in fact I try to vary the kinds of sources for my painting. Here's a Tom painting. Look at how many different ways circles are dealt with here in this fabulous painting. I'm going to paint this tomorrow. It makes perfectly good sense to me that one sees something extraordinary. Why not make a picture of it? If something happens to one that is extraordinary, what are the visual components of that extraordinary thing? Speaking of fabulous things, you can make a painting about. Look at the tent caterpillar nests. What I admire as an artist is the tension structure aspect of it, where you get these arcs between sticks, which is the minimal surface. It was interesting to see how many kinds of images I could spin off from something in the real world. For an abstract artist, this was a big learning experience. I like the possibility. The possibility excites me. This is maybe what I'm most interested in painting, to be able to make connections and find things that are impossible, just impossible things. It's just kind of fun to sort of project a real world system, no matter how moronic, into a studio system. I do like kind of corrupted systems. So a grid or a sequence of sort of doesn't quite hold together. I find that very exciting, and it makes me think of life, which is always sort of assembling itself into structures that then crumble either on the edges or in time, however else. Paintings have huge lives after we're gone. They change as you change. This is true for the artist. I hope it's true for collectors and for audiences, that a really interesting painting will be interesting in all sorts of different contexts and in different...
Okay, we can stop right there. I want to just say to everyone, that's the show. That's the show. It's beautiful, but you got the idea. But I want to speak to your faces for a minute before I know I'm going to get knocked off. I really, really hope you enjoyed this. I love preparing for you guys. I hope it wasn't too much information. Can we get your faces in this, so you'll just give me a finger up or tell me I went too far? The other thing is the last videos you're not going to see now, but you can watch them on your own, are 3 very famous photographers that I thought you should see in relationship to the photography show that we saw of Francesca Woodman, who are Brazil, the world famous photographers. Sherelle, can you get me everyone's faces in there again so I can say goodbye and thank you?
You can just put it on gallery view and you'll see everyone.
Oh, I have to go on gallery view. Gallery view. Anyway, I don't know why mine is not going on gallery view. No, I don't know why it's not. Anyway, participants. There you are. Thank you. You did it for me. I hope, was it too much for you today? Did I push too hard?
So based on the comments, it seems that people were very happy.
Can you do me a favor? If you all think I'm good, ask Ari. It's not costing him any extra. I want an hour and a half. I work so hard to make these things work. I mean, look, I made pages of notes. I love working with you guys. But I'd like more time to go through everything. My problem is this is me knocking down everything to the least amount, because I think to me, it's like a Rubik's Cube. I'm trying to get, I don't know if you realize what I did. I bounced in your head back and forth, showing you painting, sculpture, dead people, alive people, people that are very famous, people not so famous, because I really want you to understand, you know, the most beautiful parts about making art. And I like showing those videos because I think it helps you understand that artists are pretty intelligent, that we think about what we're doing. So anyway, I love you all. Are there any questions I can answer quickly, Sherelle, before I get kicked off?
You're just getting compliments here and questions about the nightlife photography show, which
oh my God. You can
I'll
watch
send
this on your own and think of me. Let me talk to you for a minute. They're so amazing. The Ouija one, laugh with me when you see that. There's also about, you know, an artist who was a Jewish art photographer who later becomes famous in his life with Hitler's friend. I mean, I don't even know what to do. They're so good. They're short, but this is a show that's Marlborough Gallery's closing, and they did a show of a group of really brilliant night photographers. And I thought I wanted to end with that because I wanted you to look at that in relationship to Francesca Woodman. All right. I know I got to go. I don't want to, but thank you all very much. Please come to the next one, which will be in Tribeca, and beg Ari to give me an hour and a half, please.